thought, because all these little villages have to think about their carbon emissions, and they've discovered that having a horse to collect the garbage and to take the children to school, a horse and cart, is a very good way of getting rid of your carbon emissions, because the horse only costs £1,000, whereas a lorry costs £15,000. It doesn't use any petrol. It gives you manure for your garden. And if you buy a female horse, she renews herself every few years, which is more than a lorry can ever do. So at this horse fair, they sell them for that reason. But equally, they farm horses as a crop. You know, they farm them to eat. And they've always done it. And for the hill farms, it's a very, very good resource, because the high fields up in the mountains can't be used for much else. And it helps their income, these tiny little farms. And it's helped the survival of the heavy horse. There are 9 different heavy horses in France now who are flourishing, which wouldn't do otherwise.
These are very beautiful golden horses, aren't they?
We find it heartbreaking because, of course, we have this taboo about eating horse meat, which is a very Anglo-Saxon thing. I mean, nobody knows really where it comes from, but some people say we used to worship the horse. You know, we have white horses all over our hillsides, carved into the chalk. But we've exported this taboo to all the Anglo-Saxon, English-speaking countries like America. Americans don't eat horse meat, nor do the Canadians, nor do the Australians.
But they do eat it unwittingly when they go to France and have steak tartare, don't they? Because that is generally horse meat, isn't it?
It is. It's much more...
And very good it is too. Because John Burgess started Pig Earth with an extraordinary description of the killing of a cow, I wanted to go to see the killing of a pig in January, when they do this, the cold part of the year, when no flies are around, in order to write my introduction. And you, who know much more about what killing pigs involves, were a bit squeamish. But because I was going, you said, OK, well, I'll come too. We went in this January, when we were summoned, weren't we? They said the pig killing is going to be next weekend.
Yes.
So off we went on the train.
Yes.
And it is the high point of the book and the exhibition, I think, in a way.
Yes, I think it's an incredibly important moment, and if we hadn't gone, actually we were very lucky too, because it was deep January, freezing cold weather, and during the killing that day when the pig was killed, it started to snow, and in fact it snowed really heavily all through the night, and we got amazing landscape pictures of the country in the snow, which we would never have got otherwise.
The strange thing is that although it is so high up and remote, the snow has been absent for quite a few years.
Yes, it has, which is a mystery. You know, this whole thing of the difference between climate change and weather is very confusing. But anyway, they did have a very hard winter that winter, and we did get it, which was wonderful for our book. One of my feelings is that it's very important, if you're going to eat meat, you should know what happens to an animal when it's killed, and how you feel about it. And for myself personally, it's a moment I shall never forget, and every time I eat bacon I do think of the pig, and I think that it's something everybody needs to know, and the French are very aware of that, and they even brought the school children to the pig killing.
They did. It was in the playground of the school, wasn't it?
Yes. I couldn't believe it when they all turned up.
Yeah, and Maurice was the man who did the killing, who'd killed, 5,000 pigs in his time, and he was an expert, and it was done quite painlessly, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, the pig was led from the stable, and by these 6 people, men, all of whom he knew. So he thought he was coming out to have something done, like the vet was going to inject him or something. And they laid him down on the table and stood in front of his face so that he couldn't see what was happening, which was very nice of them, I thought. And he didn't scream or struggle. He just lay down, and I was so nervous, and I was shaking all over. But then when I saw that he was, you know, somehow calm, I felt strong enough to go, and I photographed him and right in the face, and watched his eyes and watched his face, and he just gradually became more and more sleepy, and then just fainted, really.
There's another side to this, of course. This was happening in the early morning, in the darkest time of the year, and you were able to record it because by then you were using a digital camera.
Yes, I mean, there are all these pros and cons of the different systems, but the marvellous thing about the digital camera is, as everybody knows probably in this audience, is that you can change the film speed as you go along. So you just have one camera. In the old days, I would have had 3 or 4 around my neck, one for fast film, one for the outside, one for negative, one for colour. And you just have one camera and you adjust to wherever you are. So in the stable, it's pitch dark. And then as you come out, you change the film speed and you can just take it through the whole process without ever changing cameras. And I just could not have done those pictures in the old days with the film speed that I had. So it was, huge advantage, and it made me very flexible. I could move around, go inside, come out, do all these things. So I was very happy with and I could also look on the back and see what I was getting.
Yeah.
Because, of course, in the old days, you wouldn't know till you got home whether you got it or not, And that was quite something. It's the difference between knowing where you are creatively and if you're getting what you want to get, and if not, how to improve it. So creatively, I think it's a marvellous tool, a new marvellous tool. It's a new medium.
One of the other things that struck me about watching you work was that many of the gifts of a photographer are under the line, as it were. Is that the right expression? They're not to do with technique or knowledge of cameras and films. They're to do with knowledge of people. I've always thought that an essential ingredient of a good curator is low cunning, and it turns out that this is essential for photographers as well.
I found being a woman photographer quite an advantage, really, because the French peasant is a very frugal creature, and they are very self-sufficient, and they love to make everything they need and grow all the food they need, and they hate to spend money. And they're always worried, if you turn up as a photographer, that you're going to make them pay for something, buy a print, or it's going to cost them some money. And with me, they just thought I was, a woman with a pretty hobby. It wasn't just about that. Also, I think using this big camera was a great help, because there's an expression in photography, I'm going to shoot pictures. And it is quite aggressive when you use 35mm cameras with big lenses and so on. But with a plate camera, they call it a sitting. And you sit there, and they sit there, and it all takes a long time. You put your dark cloth over your head, and it's very calm. Actually, because I was commissioned by the town hall to do this show, they could see that it was not for personal profit, it was for the community.
So timing's important too, obviously.
Yes, do you remember the time when we were photographing Pierre Pizot and we heard this commotion inside the house, and he was standing at the door with this great cabbage he was going to give us, but I knew that something was going to happen, so I focused up on the door and had my hand on the button, and sure enough, his dog came rushing out with a kitten half dead in its mouth, and this was the most amazing, powerful picture. And I got it absolutely at the right moment. I waited, and I had a sort of, guts, if you like, to wait for the moment and then get my one shot. And that is something, you have to have nerves of steel, and you have to have very good timing. And that's quite an art which you learn over a period of time, I think.
Yes, I remember Monsieur Pizot saying, "Oh, he's only playing with it."
These farmers are under threat from the European Union regulations because they are imposing standards of hygiene which are really quite unnecessary under the circumstances. And in my opinion, the whole problem could be resolved with packaging, because if it says on the package, this is an artisan cheese, then you are making your own choice. As long as people know what they're buying, why shouldn't we choose an artisan cheese if we want to? Why should we be forced to have it taken away from us. This is my position. As long as it's labelled and it's there and you know what you're eating, it's your own risk. And if you ask a French person and they say, 200 people died last year from food poisoning, and they say, that's fine, they died for France.